It always begins quietly, not with a scream, not with a collapse, but with a whisper. A small permission you give yourself, a delay, a hesitation, a moment where you choose comfort over clarity. Weakness never arrives as an enemy at the gates. It grows like a shadow behind you, patient, loyal only to your undoing. And in ancient Sparta, they understood something most men today refuse to face. Weakness is not born in a moment of failure. It is born in the moments before it. A Spartan boy learned this before he learned his own name. They watched him, not his strength, not his talent, not his victories, but the tiny fractures in his discipline. Did he blink when challenged? Did he seek warmth too quickly? Did he complain when no one listened? The Spartans knew those small fractures were not harmless. They were the roots. And if you don't rip out the roots, the tree grows crooked forever. And you watching this, carry the same roots inside you. The same temptations, the same softness waiting to spread. You know exactly where it hides. In your mornings, in your excuses, in the choices you avoid making. If this story is touching something in you, comment below where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Because the truth is simple. Weakness is not dramatic. It doesn't make an entrance. It simply waits for you to stop paying attention. And the modern world encourages it. Every screen, every distraction, every easy option is a quiet invitation to become a lesser version of yourself. Comfort disguises itself as kindness. Laziness disguises itself as self-care. Quitting disguises itself as listening to your feelings. But a Spartan would call it what it is: surrender. When the boy hesitated, the Spartan elder didn't scold him. He didn't strike him. He asked him a single question that echoed through the generations. If you show weakness in the small things, why should we trust you in the great ones? This is the question that hangs over every man who seeks to rise. Not, how strong are you? But, where do you allow weakness to live? Sparta believed that the man who tolerates weakness in himself becomes a danger to everyone around him. A weak warrior endangers his brothers. A weak leader destroys his people. A weak father cripples his sons. So they trained their young to hunt weakness in the same way they hunted enemies relentlessly, without mercy, without negotiation. And now the story turns to you. Where's your weakness hiding? And why have you allowed it to stay this long? There was one rule in Sparta that separated boys from men, warriors from pretenders, and strength from illusion. A rule so severe, so uncompromising, that even today most men would rather deny it than face it. The Spartans called it the law of the first crack. It stated, what breaks you later, first warned you softly. To the Spartans, weakness was never sudden. If a shield slipped in battle, it meant discipline slipped long before. If a soldier failed his brothers, it meant he failed himself in private moments no one saw. The rule demanded that a man confront the first sign of decay the moment it appeared, before it gained a voice, before it gained roots, before it became a truth about who he was. This rule governed everything: training, endurance, honor, speech, even thoughts. A Spartan warrior was taught to hunt for the earliest tremor of softness, the first complaint forming in the mind, the first instinct to rest, the first desire to be seen as strong rather than be strong. And when he found it, the rule demanded only one response: eliminate it immediately. No negotiation, no waiting, no hoping it would fix itself. Because to hope for discipline is to choose weakness disguised as optimism. And now, look at yourself. Look at the world you live in. Every system around you teaches the opposite of what Sparta enforced. Weakness today is pampered. Excuses are applauded. Every craving is validated. Every discomfort is labeled trauma. And men grow softer, believing they are growing more self-aware. But the Spartans would consider this a slow, quiet death. The law of the first crack existed because they believed one truth above all: a man becomes what he permits. Permit one excuse, and you become an excuse maker. Permit one lie, and you become a liar. Permit one day without discipline, and you become the kind of man who abandons his mission for comfort. The elders of Sparta would watch the young boys with eyes like hawks, not to see if they succeeded, but to see where the first crack appeared. And when they found it, they didn't punish the boy. They forced him to confront it, to understand it, to destroy it, because the enemy you refuse to face is the one that grows Think now, where was your first crack today? The hesitation before rising? The moment you reached for your phone instead of your purpose? The thought that whispered later, and you listened? The Spartans would tell you this. That moment was the real battle, and you lost it before the day even began. But here's the part men forget. The law of the first crack isn't about shame. It's about dominion. It's about claiming ownership over the small defeats that shape the great ones. A Spartan warrior didn't wait to be disciplined. He became the source of his own discipline. And now, the rule is handed to you. What you choose to do with it will determine everything you become. In Sparta, a boy didn't enter training to become strong. He entered to be stripped of comfort, of illusion, of the fragile story he told himself about who he was. The agōgē was designed for one purpose: to break the ego before the world ever could. Modern men misunderstand strength. They think it's built by adding things: muscle, skills, achievements. But the Spartans knew the opposite truth. Real strength is revealed when everything unnecessary is taken away. A Spartan boy was given almost nothing: rough clothes, minimal food, cold nights, endless drills, brutal competition, and silence, so much silence that a boy was forced to hear the truth inside himself. There, in that silence, the ego begins to scream. Because the ego cannot survive hunger. It cannot survive failure. It cannot survive being judged not by your intentions, but by your actions. And the Spartans wanted that scream. They wanted the boy to meet the part of himself that begged for comfort, that whispered excuses, that doubted his own worth. Only by meeting it face to face could he learn to conquer it. Every challenge in the agōgē was crafted with surgical precision. A boy who boasted was ignored until the weight of silence crushed him. A boy who acted tough was pushed until his mask cracked. A boy who hid his fear was forced into situations where fear exposed itself. It wasn't cruelty. It was revelation. The Spartans believed a man who doesn't know his own weakness is the most dangerous kind of weak. You can't destroy what you refuse to acknowledge. And so they engineered moments, small, intentional humiliations, not to shame the boy, but to show him where his ego was still alive, where it needed to die. A mentor would watch him steal food because he was starving, then punish him not for stealing, but for getting caught. Why? Because ego gets caught. Discipline does not. A boy would be ordered to hold a posture until his muscles trembled, then told to hold it longer. Why? Because the ego quits first. The body quits second. The spirit quits last. And they wanted the boy to learn the difference. And now, you must look at yourself. When was the last time you allowed something in your life to break your ego? Most men protect theirs like a treasure, defending their pride, avoiding discomfort, escaping any test that might reveal who they actually are beneath the story they tell. But a Spartan knew, if your ego survives, your greatness won't. Your ego is the version of you that fears being exposed. Your discipline is the version of you that fears staying the same. Every man must choose. The agōgē wasn't designed to build warriors. It was designed to build men who no longer lied to themselves. Ask yourself now, if your ego vanished today, what strength in you would finally be free? To the Spartans, pain was never an enemy. It was a mirror, a teacher, a moral test that revealed who you were when every comfort was stripped away. Most men today see pain as something to escape. They treat discomfort like a malfunction, something to medicate or avoid. But the Spartans believed a terrifying truth. A man who cannot endure pain cannot be trusted. Not in battle, not in brotherhood, not even with himself. In Sparta, pain wasn't just physical, it was ethical. It measured your loyalty to your duty. It revealed whether your word meant anything. It exposed whether you acted from conviction or convenience. A Spartan boy learned this long before he held a spear. When hunger clawed at him, when cold stiffened his fingers, when exhaustion blurred his vision, he discovered that pain doesn't weaken you. It clarifies you. Pain strips away your excuses. Pain exposes your motives. Pain forces you to choose. Stay loyal to your discipline or betray it. This is why the Spartans embraced suffering with the same seriousness they approached war. They believed that if a man could not bear the weight of his own hardship, he would collapse under the weight of responsibility. Modern men have forgotten this. You are told that pain is toxic, that suffering means something is wrong. That ease is the goal, and discomfort is a sign you've failed. But the Spartans knew the opposite. Ease corrupts. Pain purifies. When a Spartan mentor watched a boy tremble under strain, he didn't rescue him. He waited. He watched. He observed whether the boy's fear became a reason to quit or a reason to rise. Because pain is the moment when your character steps into the light. A man who endures pain only when it's convenient will never endure when it truly matters. And what about you? Think of the last time pain visited your life: physical, emotional, spiritual. Did you meet it with discipline? Or did you retreat to comfort? Did you treat it like a warning or like an invitation to grow? A Spartan would tell you this: pain is the price of transformation. Avoid it, and you avoid the man you were supposed to become. The boy in the agōgē who cried out during punishment was not mocked. He was studied, because the cry wasn't the problem. The quitting was. Spartans understood that the world will inevitably break you, but the breaking is not the tragedy. The tragedy is breaking without purpose. So they taught their sons to give pain a purpose, to assign meaning to the suffering, to treat endurance not as a test of the body, but as a declaration of the soul. And now, warrior, the question turns to you. If pain entered your life today, real pain, would it expose you or fortify you? The answer reveals more than you think. It reveals exactly who you are. Spartan discipline wasn't about rules. It wasn't about punishment. It wasn't even about obedience. It was about identity. A Spartan didn't act with discipline. He was discipline. To them, discipline wasn't a behavior you turned on when convenient. It was a force that reshaped the mind, the body, and the soul until hesitation no longer existed. Absolute discipline meant this: your actions obey your purpose, not your feelings. In the modern world, men wait for motivation. They wait to feel ready. Spartans laughed at the idea. They believed that if your commitment depends on emotion, you are already defeated. So how did they build this iron will? Through a simple but brutal mechanism: consistency without negotiation. Every task, no matter how small, had to be completed with the same focus you'd give to the battlefield. If you were ordered to run, you ran. If you were told to hold your stance, you held it. If you were commanded to endure the cold, you embraced it. Not because the task mattered, but because who you became while completing it mattered. In Sparta, a boy wasn't praised for greatness. He was praised for reliability. The elders didn't ask, "Can he fight?" They asked, "Can he be counted on?" Discipline was proof of loyalty to the city, to his brothers, and to himself. Modern men see discipline as a burden. Spartans saw it as freedom, because once discipline rules your life, nothing else does. Not fear, not desire, not weakness. This mechanism was simple: do the hard thing first, do the necessary thing always, do the right thing especially when you don't want to. And something happens when you live this way. Your mind stops negotiating. Your body stops resisting. The gap between intention and action collapses. You become lethal not because you're violent, but because you're consistent. Think about your own life. How many things have you postponed? How many promises have you made to yourself that you quietly abandoned? How many times did you choose the easy path, believing you'd try again tomorrow? A Spartan would see these not as harmless lapses, but as fractures in the shield, small breaks that lead to catastrophic failure. Absolute discipline is built in the small moments: the morning you rise without hesitation, the workout you complete when tired, the responsibility you uphold when no one is watching. Because the truth is this: if you cannot command yourself, you cannot command your destiny. And the man who submits to his weakness in private will inevitably submit to the world in public. The Spartans refused to live that way. And now, warrior, you must decide whether you will. The world you live in is nothing like ancient Sparta, and yet your battles are just as real. You don't face spears or shields, but you face something far more dangerous: a society built to seduce you into weakness. Spartans trained to eliminate threats. You must train to eliminate distractions. Their enemies attacked from the front. Yours attack from inside: your habits, your screen, your comfort, your doubt. So how do you apply the Spartan rule that destroys weakness at the root? You begin where they began, with the first crack. Identify the smallest moment where discipline falters, not the big failures, those arrive too late. Look at the silent ones, The morning you press snooze, the meal you know you shouldn't eat, the workout you skip because you'll do it later, the thought that whispers this doesn't really matter, it always matters. Because the crack you ignore today becomes the collapse you face tomorrow. The Spartan way is brutally simple. Attack weakness before it reaches strength. That means creating rules for yourself that do not bend. Rules that define you. Rules that shape your identity more than your mood. Start with 3. Command your mornings. You rise when you say you will. No negotiations. A day won in the first hour rarely collapses later. Honor your word to yourself. If you schedule a task, you complete it. Break your promise once and your identity fractures. Seek discomfort daily, not for heroism but for calibration. A cold shower, a hard workout, a silent hour without screens. These are not punishments. They are reminders. Pain is not the enemy, softness is. Then comes the deeper layer, the mental discipline the Spartans mastered. When a weak thought appears, you don't let it roam. You interrogate it. You expose it. You crush it. Ask yourself, does this thought make me stronger or weaker? If it weakens you, you remove it from your identity. You speak, act, and choose from the version of yourself you intend to become, not the version you're trying to escape. And here lies the heart of the Spartan code in the modern world. Weakness grows in private. Strength grows in repetition. Every small disciplined action becomes a brick. Every avoided temptation becomes another. And one day, without fanfare, without applause, you look around and realize you have built a fortress. Not a fortress that keeps the world out. A fortress that keeps your weakness in chains. This is how a modern warrior lives. Not perfectly, not fearlessly, but deliberately. And when the first crack appears, as it always will, you act with the same ferocity the Spartans expected from their sons. You eliminate it at the root, before it becomes a habit, before it becomes a truth, before it becomes you. Because the man who conquers the early weakness never has to face the catastrophic one later. You've walked through the shadows of Sparta, but now comes the part no Spartan boy was ever warned about. The twist wasn't the discipline. It wasn't the pain. It wasn't even the rule that hunted weakness at the root. The real twist was this: the enemy they trained you to destroy has always been you. Not the version watching this video. Not the version striving, pushing, rising. But the older version, the one clinging to the comfort you still romanticize. The one whispering you've done enough. The one quietly praying you stay the same, because change is terrifying. Every Spartan ritual, every test, every cut of discomfort existed for one purpose: to kill the weaker self, before the world ever demanded it. And here is the truth you've avoided. You cannot become the man you're destined to be until the man you've been finally dies. Most men never face this moment. They polish their weakness. They disguise it as personality. They romanticize their hesitation. They call their fear being realistic. Spartans would call it treason, not against the city, but against your own potential. Because weakness doesn't truly grow in the body. It grows in decisions, in patterns, in the small stories you tell yourself that let you remain half a warrior. You've learned the rule. You understand the cracks. You know how to hunt them. But now comes the moral strike the Spartans kept hidden until the final stage of training. You don't destroy weakness by discipline alone. You destroy it by replacing the man who tolerates it. One identity must fall for another to rise. One version of you must be buried so a stronger one can breathe. That's why the agōgē felt cruel. It wasn't punishing the boy. It was assassinating the weaker man he would have grown into. And you're standing on that same threshold right now. Everything you've learned in this story means nothing unless you make a choice. That costs you something. A comfort, a habit, a belief, a version of yourself. So here is the final provocation. Warrior, one the elders of Sparta would whisper into the ear of every trembling initiate. If the man you are today met the man you could become, would he be proud of you or afraid of you? Answer that honestly, and you'll know exactly which one must die tonight.